Alright, so we are back for another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing the top 10 LRs list. Because, of course, with the Part 1 LRs for Worldwide Down Celebration coming out, now this list did switch up just a bit. Because both of the new units are very crazy. I guess this is kind of a spoiler alert, but you already probably knew this. Both of them are on this list. So, very good units with them. And I did want to talk about the Vegito a bit as well, because he kind of has a little controversy with him for not being that good. Or I guess I should say the Goku and the Vegeta, because the Vegito, I think everybody can agree, he's insanely busted. But the Goku and Vegeta, not a lot of people like. Some people have kind of like complaints with him, and some of them are good, but I feel like some of them are kind of unnecessary. So we'll talk about that a little later once we get into the Goku and the Vegeta fused with the Vegito. But there is a couple things I do want to clarify before we get into the top 10. So number one, all of these units are very, very good. I mean, obviously it's a top 10 list, but especially with this new wave of power creep we've had for the past, I guess, year or two at this point, these units are very, very close in terms of their power. Like number 10, there's probably an argument for him being on the same like level as number 1. Like all of these units are very, very close. It's just kind of the way Dokkan is right now. There's no significant difference or gap in this list. All these units are very, very good and somewhat relative in terms of their power, but I think obviously some do have a little bit of an edge over the others, which we will elaborate more in this video. And then also there are some runner-ups right here. It's crazy to think, but in my opinion, these guys are not in the top 10. They're like right there. If there was an 11 and a 12, a Bird Coup would be 11, and then the Cooler would be 12. But I don't quite think they are a top 10 right now. If you disagree with me, that's completely fine as well. I think there is an argument for them being in the top 10. Well, there definitely is, especially the Bird Coup. But in my opinion, I don't think they quite make it. And then these three guys, they're all very good, but I wouldn't call them top 10, right? So then I guess just getting into number 10, we've got LR Vegeta and Trunks. So LR Vegeta and Trunks is a very good unit, mainly because his lead. So for newer players, even, I guess, experienced players, having this guy as a lead is going to be very good because he leads Bond of Parent and Child, which I got it pulled up right here. This is one of the best categories in the game. Most of the other units on this list are also on Bond of Parent and Child. So then as a lead, you know, he's going to be crazy. Especially because the extra 30% goes to Battle of Fate, which is, you know, obviously a very broad category. A lot of units on Bond of Parent and Child are also on Battle of Fate. So then his leader skill is amazing. But then as an actual lead unit, he's amazing because he's a slot 1 option. So then if you have to run, you know, another one of him because you're running him as a lead, so then you bring a friend version of him, it's going to work very good because on one rotation, you can have one of this guy in slot 1. And then on the other rotation, you could have the friend in slot 1. So works out very well. Defensively, he's going to be absolutely fine because he's stacking defense, and then he's building up defense. He also has crit chance and additionals built in, so his damage is going to be good. And like I mentioned, because he's stacking and building up, his stats throughout the fight are going to get higher and higher. Now, there is kind of an issue with this guy. So if you're not running a Bond of Parent Child category ally, he only gets guard in slot 1. So then, let's say you get locked in slot 2 or 3, you don't have the guard. This guy is going to take a little damage because turn 1, if you don't have guard, his defense is not good. He's only at like, you know, 200k defense. So it's not really going to be that impressive. So you're going to want to make sure you've got a Bond and Parent Child category ally, which isn't really that difficult. And you're going to want to try and throw him in slot 1 after turn 5, because then at that point, the guard is only restricted to the first attacker in a turn, which isn't really that big of a deal unless the enemy is locking you or anything like that. Then you could just throw him in slot 1, and then defensively, he should be fine. Because again, you know, he's getting better defensively throughout the fight. So then, you know, he's going to be just absolutely tanking everything in slot 1, which is really good because these slot 1 units, you'll notice most of the units on this list are slot 1 options because there's a lot more slot 2 and 3 units than there are slot 1 units. So then when we get a really busted slot 1 unit, you know, they're obviously very, very valuable. So that's why I do have this guy at number 10. His categories, I mean, they're good, but they're not really amazing. He doesn't have that many. His link set, well, you know, he's got like Royal Lineage, Dismal Future, which aren't really great links. But for the most part, he's a very good unit. And for newer players, he's going to be absolutely amazing. So that's why I think number 10 is pretty reasonable for him. And then at number 9, we do have the Z Duo. So, look, I like the Z Duo. They're very, very good. I mean, you know, they're in the top 10. So, of course, you know, they've had very good potential. But for the first couple turns, they can kind of fraud out. They're not really that great defensively until they stack up. And then, you know, if you get supered turn 1, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. If you get unlucky with Ki and you don't get a super off with them, they're going to get destroyed. So you have to be very careful with them and kind of baby them for the first couple turns. But they do have this standby. So when you go into the Vegeta, or I guess it's a Goku right here, but it's really Vegeta is the character you turn into, they become like one of the best defensive units in the game. So, I mean, yeah, sure, they're kind of bad for the first couple turns defensively. But then once you do those 4 attacks and you get the standby, they become insane. So they've got a pretty reasonable start of turn defensive stat. They get guaranteed guard and their rainbow orb changing for the first 4 turns. And then they reduce damage received by 8% per key sphere obtained. But then they can't attack at all. But then they've got the standby, which, they do an insane amount of damage. So it's kind of worth it. But you got to keep in mind they can't attack at all. So it makes sense why they'd be so good defensively. But I don't know, man. I think a lot of the hate they get is kind of undeserved. I get, defensively, they're not the best for the first couple turns. But as long as you only bring one of them on the team and you kind of baby them, they're still going to work perfectly fine. Now, if you're running him as a lead, yeah, dude, good luck. Good luck. You're just going to get destroyed. Because running 2 of this guy is just almost impossible, especially in difficult events now. So I think he's very good, but there is a lot of issues with him. That's why, again, I think only running 1 of him on a team is probably smart. Because then once you run 2 of him, you already got too many of him floating around on the rotations and stuff. So you got to be very careful with him. That's why I think number 9 is pretty good. I mean, I'd say he's better than Vegeta and Trunks because he's got the standby. He also has a better link set. He's got more teams. He's probably going to do more damage as well. But defensively, he's a little rough in some spots. And then at number 8, we do have the 5th year anniversary Gogeta. And then I guess I can just put number 7 here as well. We've got the Vegito. So they're both very similar in power, but I would put the Vegito a little higher than the Gogeta because he has the potential to do more supers. And because of the massive amount of defense, like the Vegito and the Gogeta are getting on their 18 key and 12 key super, it really does matter, even if the Vegito is doing like 1 or 2 additional supers compared to the Gogeta. But that's not to say the Gogeta is bad. This guy is super effective against all types, while this guy is not. So if you get really unlucky with the Vegito in terms of supers, there is an argument for the Gogeta actually doing more damage than the Vegito. But they're very, very close in terms of their power. Like most tier lists probably have them like this. But just to make it a little bit more fair, I'm going to put them separate because there is one unit, or one slot, I guess, where we have tied. And I don't want to spoil anything more, but yeah, I only wanted one of those on this list. I didn't want to have 2 instances where there's 2 units in 1 slot. So figured we could just put Vegito at 7 because it's universally agreed on. He is just a little bit better. And then Gogeta at number 8 because they're both very good. But again, Vegito's a little bit better. They've got the guaranteed dodge. They've got the active skills. You guys probably know everything about them. Very good units, but not quite better than some of these up-and-coming units we're going to talk about. So at number 6, we do have the Carnival LR Goku. So I did put them above the 5th year fusions. On my last couple tier lists, I've done the same thing. I just think he's a little bit better all around. I mean, his leader skill is better for the first couple turns. He's going to be better because he has that guard. He's got the high chance to nullify Ki Blast supers. He's building up, but the build up's going to be really easy to do because you have to take attacks. And then you could just throw this guy in slot 1 where majority of the attacks are because he's got the guard for the first couple turns. And then alongside the build up and him stacking defense, defensively he's going to look really good. And then even when the guard wears off, he's still going to be able to tank normals. And then you also have the high chance to nullify Ki Blast supers. So then you could kind of rely on that with super attacks, which Ki Blast supers is the most common super attack the enemy's going to be doing in the game. So, keep that in mind. He's got the active skill. He gets guaranteed crits. So, of course, that's going to be very useful. And then if you get this 120% attack buff and then do the active skill that has the guaranteed crits, yeah, it's going to hit very hard. The condition for the active skill is kind of alright. You got to be below 59% HP starting from the 5th turn from start of battle when there's an Earthbred Fighters category ally in the same turn. So there's a lot of restrictions, but it's not as difficult as it sounds. Being below 59% HP is probably the most difficult part of this. But then from turn 5, I guess that's not really that big of a deal. And then having another Earthbred Fighters does not matter whatsoever. Because obviously Earthbred Fighters is another team that's very, very good. I mean, we can pull this up really quick. I would say this is one of the best teams in the game alongside Bond and Parent Child. So not really the worst condition for his active skill. But, I mean, in some situations it might give you a little trouble. His link set's very good. His categories are very good. I mean, he's not on that many categories, but pretty much every single team he's on is very good. And they're very good partially because a unit like him exists. Because like I mentioned with the Vegeta and Trunks, these slot 1 options are very, very important in the game. And then as a lead, dude, he's very good as well. He's kind of on the same level as a leader skill as Vegeta and Trunks. So he leads Turtle School. By the way, this includes like every Goku, every Master Roshi, every Krillin, every Yamcha. So this is a very good team as well. So then running 2 of them and then obviously putting them both in slot 1 is going to be very useful. And then having guard for the first 6 turns, that's majority of the fight for a lot of events right now. Fights aren't going past turn 10 really. In most circumstances, they're kind of wrapping up turn 7 or 8. So then you're really only losing the guard at the very end of the fight. And then by that point, you're blasting everyone's active skills. So you'll probably just end up killing anyway. So that's why I do think number 6 is good for this guy. I do think he's a little better than the 5th year fusions, but once again, I think there are better units on this list. But then moving on to number 5, we've got the spot most people probably clicked on this video for, Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta. Now let me just get this out of the way. They are very, very good. But the main question, are they good enough to be a worldwide download celebration unit? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely, when they fuse. So before they fuse, yeah, there's a little difficulties with them. So they do stack defense, which means, later in the fight they can look really impressive, but that's not really my issue with them. My issue is what they're looking like for the first couple turns. So they've got guard for the first 4 turns, which is actually really good, but defensively, not really worried about them, and that's not really what we're going to be talking about. A lot of people's issue with them is how much damage they're doing. So before you fuse, and before you get to stack up a lot of attack with them, dude, they're only dropping like 5 million attack stats tops. And then the additionals are only doing like, 2 million attack stats. So their damage is really not that impressive, but you do have to keep in mind when you fuse with them, they become like one of the best units in the game. Like if we were just talking about the fuse state, instant number 1. Like I would say just instantly number 1. When you fuse, he's just insanely busted, greatly raising attack and defense on 12 and 18 key, supporting superclass allies by 50% defense. He's got a lot of built-in additionals as well, so then, you're getting so much defense on all these supers. He's got damage reduction built in, which considering the Goku and the Vegeta are stacking defense, this guy's starter turn defensive stat is going to look pretty impressive. And then his damage is going to be really crazy as well because Goku and Vegeta are stacking defense, so then this guy is going to do a lot of damage. He's got the active skill, which gives him guaranteed dodge. So, for that one turn, he's going to be busted. Well, not just for that one turn, but for that one turn, he's going to be even more busted. He still keeps the high chance to dodge when you fuse as well in the first slot. So this guy's just so crazy. Like I said, if this was just about his transform state or his fuse state, instantly number 1. But when you start talking about the Goku and Vegeta part of his kit, he does look a lot less impressive. So his damage really isn't that good. Even though he's got all these built-in additionals, with him only dropping like 4 million attack stats, it's not really that crazy. His defense can look pretty good because for the first 4 turns, he does have guard. He is getting defense on his 18 key super. And then also he's got the high chance to dodge as the first attacker in a turn. So he can look impressive if you throw him in slot 1. But I don't know, even then, like if you get supered and you don't dodge, this guy might take a little bit of damage. And he can get cooked. But again, when you fuse with him, he's just insanely busted. So I'm going to put him at number 5. I think he's still better than a lot of these guys. Not in base, but then when you fuse, he becomes way better than any of these guys. So we'll put him at number 5 because he has very good potential, but unfortunately, Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta are just a little underwhelming. Now, I'm not even saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're underwhelming compared to what they should have been for a Worldwide Download Celebration unit. But I would put him at number 5. I think that's a fair spot. Maybe if you really want to argue a little bit higher, I think that's possible. If you want to argue a little bit lower, no, you're wrong because they've got the fusion, which just makes them very good. So I'm going to put them at number 5. Again, I think that's a fair spot. Feel free to let me know in the comments how stupid I am for that. But moving on to number 4, we do have Orange Piccolo. So Orange Piccolo is very, very good still with a lot of the new Red Zone stages. I think this guy has really had his time to shine because he's got that guard for the first couple turns. He's building up. So then defensively, he's going to be very good, at least for the first couple turns with his guard. Once the guard does wear off, I mean, he's still good defensively, but only with 20% damage reduction. He's not looking insane. But then if you get the 50% damage reduction, which is very difficult to get, but it's still possible you could get it, then this guy's going to look really, really crazy. Because then pushing a million defense, he's getting defense on super as well, and then he has 50% damage reduction. That's very, very good. But again, this is really difficult to get. You have to be below 30% HP, and you have to take 7 attacks, which, again, just very difficult. I would say if they just removed, like, the 7 attacks, I mean, this would be really good because there's a couple, like, instances where I can remember I was below 30% HP, but I didn't get it because I didn't take 7 attacks. So I think this really trips me up a lot of the time when using the Piccolo and expecting to get this 30% damage reduction right here, but being below 30% HP is still really difficult. So this part is very rare, but it's still worth mentioning that he has this because it's very good. Like I said, if you get 50% damage reduction alongside his defense, and then if it's within the first 3 turns, his guard, he's going to look very good defensively. His leader skill is pretty solid. His super attack effects are very good. He's got the giant form, which obviously is very good. This is exactly how I like giant form units designed. He's got some form of ki. He's got some form of damage, so very impressive with this. And then, obviously, he's got a good link set. He's got a lot of really good categories. I mean, you can't really go wrong. It's Orange Piccolo, right? I mean, he's a very good unit, and he's probably going to be a very good unit for a long time because, again, guard, damage reduction, crazy high defense, giant form, all of that, definitely very good. And then at number 3, we do have the GT duo. So now that Global, we've had them for a bit, we can kind of get a good evaluation on how they really are. I mean, they're crazy. You get the 50% damage reduction, then in slot 2, they're absolutely amazing. But I wouldn't really say they're great for slot 1, and like I mentioned a couple times in the video already, slot 1 units are very, very good and prominent in the game right now because there's kind of a lack of them. So then this guy just being another slot 2 unit is kind of unfortunate, but he's still very good in slot 2. Like I said, you get the 50% damage reduction with him, you get all the defense on super, so then he's tanking everything once you get your supers off first. And then his damage is going to look really impressive as well. Not only is he stacking attack, which is good for his standby. Actually, it's really good for his standby. It's going to make this hit like a nuke. But then also, it makes him do, 10 million into like a 12 million, into another 12 million. And then, his damage is going to be crazy with him stacking attack and having all the additionals built in. And then also, like I said, he's got the standby. Now, when you do the standby, you got the revive going on for you. So his defense becomes horrible, but you're meant to die, so then you can get the revive. So it kind of works out. And then also, when you go into the standby mode, you've got this insane support. So you're supporting everyone for 8 key and then 80% attack. So then not only is this guy going to be hitting crazy hard, but pretty much everybody's going to be hitting very hard. And then once you do die, you drop the standby, which because he's stacking attack, because everything going on with him, it's going to hit insanely hard. You're most likely going to kill the enemy. You've got that chance to crit even at 55% because he's STR. So yeah, just a very good unit all around. Very good for slot 2. As a lead, he could work, I guess, but you got to be very careful with using him because, like I said, he's not really amazing for slot 1. His start of turn defense is only like 250k, maybe 300k at most. And with 50% damage reduction, that's good considering he's getting a lot more defense on super. Because then after you super, you start to push a million defense with 50% damage reduction, which is very, very good. But then before you super, you're only at like 200, 300k defense with 50% damage reduction, which is still good, but supers are just going to obliterate him. So I think having him in slot 2 and 3, he's going to look insane. Having him in slot 1 might be a little rough, right? So that's why I think number 3 is good because he's very, very good if you look at him in slot 2 and 3. He also has the crazy revive, the standby. He's a crazy support when you go into the standby. So I think number 3 is very good for him. And then at number 2, I do have the Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So a lot of these options in I guess the top 4 are even closer than the rest of the list. So you could pretty much exchange any of these guys for any of them, right? I mean, if you want to put Piccolo here, Goku here, that's fine. If you want to put GT Duo all the way up here and then Goku all the way down here, that's fine. But I would put this list like this because right now, I think the GT Super Saiyan 4 Goku and the GT Duo have better teams than Piccolo. And then also the Super Saiyan 4 Goku is a very good slot 1 option for pretty much the whole fight. So that's why I think this guy is very, very valuable. I mean, when it comes to global, you guys will see he's just an insane option. Even before he does the standby or anything, he can get up to 40% damage reduction in slot 1, and then you get all the stats with him with receiving attacks. You carry defense over into, the next couple turns. And then if you have these links active like Sand Roar, GT, Shocking Speed, you're getting a lot of defense from that. Actually, you're getting a lot of attack from that as well. So a lot of power with his links, a lot of teams he's on, just a crazy unit. And then when you go into the Maju form of him, I mean, he becomes like the best defensive unit in the game, I think. I don't think Z Duo are outperforming this guy defensively. He gets 10% damage reduction per type key sphere obtained, guaranteed guard with 3 key spheres obtained, all allies 3 key, and 70% defense for 2 turns. And then he's randomly changing 1 key sphere of a certain type to int, and then he's nullifying unarmed super attacks. So like I mentioned earlier, the Key Blast supers are the most common super, but it's still good he has this in his back pocket, right? So this guy's just insane. I can't wait to use him when it comes to global, man. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm having so much fun with the Worldwide Download Celebration units, but this guy is like crazy as well. Just an insane standby. When you go into full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, he's just crazy as well. He's still carrying over defense into other turns. Now he's going to have 50% damage reduction in slot 1 with his crazy defensive stat. He's going to be doing so much damage. I mean, you can see there's a bunch of stat buffs. You got, the 200% here, 150% here, 77% here. You got 77% here. You got 59% here. And then, the attack and defense on super, which he's carrying over into other turns. He's orb changing. He's got the guaranteed guard for 1 turn. He's got the crits built in. He's recovering 77% HP. And then he's getting the guaranteed crit when key is 24. which I don't really think he's going to be an issue with this guy because 7 key right here, and then also he's getting additional key with this. So this guy is just insane. I love this guy. He's one of the funnest units in the game. Of course, I've been messing around with him on a private server, and he's just crazy. His leader skill isn't necessarily amazing. I'd say that's the one downside of him. GT Heroes, again, isn't really that great. I mean, this category has some good options on it, but I would say outside of the GT Duo and then the 7th year anniversary Monkeys, I mean, this team just kind of sucks, right? So right now, not really the best with his leader skill. I mean, full power also isn't really amazing. I guess we can look at this. It's got some solid options, but it's not great. It's definitely better than GT Heroes, but it's still just not really all that amazing. So this guy's very good. I think number 2 is perfectly fine. I would say the only real weakness is his leader skill. I think that's the only thing I'm not really a big fan of. But other than that, just an amazing unit. Now, you'll notice there's 2 units that you probably think you would have saw on this list by now. Yeah, I've got them both tied for number 1. So we got Merge Zamasu, and then we've got LR Bulma. Now, look, I love LR Bulma, right? And I love Merge Zamasu. I think they're both very, very good. But for now, I gotta say they're tied, right? I mean, I think there's no other better way to put it. Because Merge Zamasu is insane. Defensively, he's gonna be very good. He's got that 80% damage reduction on turn 1, and then it drops to 60%, and then 40%. So then 40% damage reduction. He's getting attack and defense when receiving an attack. He's getting the additionals when receiving an attack. So he is a slot 1 option. And you guys already know what I said about slot 1 units. And then he's also building up this attack buff right here, which with this, he's dropping like 20 million attack stats. And he's got crits and all that built in. So just a very, very insane unit all around. He also has got the domain thing, which don't even get me started on this. He takes no damage whatsoever, and he's doing so much damage. He's also orb changing, and he's a support. So very, very crazy. You guys probably know everything about him. Obviously, he just came out, so he's very fresh. I won't talk about him for too long, but I just love this guy. His leader skill is really good. You got 3 categories right here: Realm of Gods, Worldwide Chaos, and Fuse Fighters. These categories by themselves aren't amazing, but because all of them are on the leader skill, it's a pretty good lead. And then also Time Travelers and Final Trump Card are 2 very good 30% buffs. And then 150% to stats to all extreme class units. Very, very good. I just love this guy all around. It's exactly what we needed with the LR Zamasu. I think this was an extremely big W. I know the Vegito had some controversy around him, but I think the release of the Zamasu was much more important than the Vegito. The only issue I have with him isn't even in his kit. It's just his name. And if you've been going on Twitter at all, you see everyone's like doing a post about it. So I don't know. There's a chance they'll change the name to Half Corrupted Zamasu, and then this guy can link with the LR Zamasu. But for now, his name is a little rough. That's my only issue with him. But again, that's not even in his kit. That's just, you know, his name. It's just a Fusion Zamasu. And if they don't change it, it's still not that big of a deal because there's only one other Zamasu he's not going to be able to link with. So I'm not really that worried about it. But still, just an amazing unit all around. Bulma's very good as well. Well, very good is kind of an understatement. I mean, she gets that 77% damage reduction. She's got the guard. Her damage is going to be crazy. She's got the active skill, great super attack effects. I mean, she's on the same level as Zamasu, right? That's why I got them both tied for number 1. I think they're both insane on their own teams. If you got them both in the perfect setup, they're going to look about the same. And then even in these weak setups, they're both still going to look really impressive because, I mean, they've just got so much built into their kit, like additionals, guard, damage reduction, dodge, whatever. Well, I guess no dodge, but you know, still, both of them got so much built into their kit. Even 55%, they're crazy. So this is what my list is looking like. I know a lot of you are going to disagree. I mean, you know, it's bound to happen. This is just my opinion. Keep that in mind. Of course, you know, some of you guys are going to have completely different lists than me. But let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this list. Let me know how you feel about the full lineup. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.